The great hall of the galactic summit shimmered with golden light. Floating banners of 100 empires hung from the ceiling, glowing with alien symbols. The air buzzed with voices of diplomats, warriors, and rulers from across the stars. For most, this was a grand day of politics. For one young man named Ethan Cross, it was terrifying. Ethan was not a famous figure. He was not a high-ranking ambassador or a decorated soldier. He was just a junior representative sent from Earth, a planet still new to the stage of galactic politics. His mission was simple: observe, take notes, and avoid embarrassing humanity. At least that was what his superiors told him. But as Ethan stood in the hall surrounded by towering alien leaders with scales, wings, and glowing eyes, he felt smaller than ever. He adjusted his simple suit and tried to remember the etiquette lessons his trainers gave him. Bow slightly. Do not touch anyone without permission. Never insult someone's crest, horns, or crown. He repeated the rules in his head like a prayer. The center of the hall suddenly grew silent. All eyes turned as a figure entered, tall, graceful, and wrapped in robes of deep silver and green. Her presence was like a star burning brighter than all others. This was Empress Lysera, ruler of the Zalari Empire, one of the oldest and strongest powers in the galaxy. Her people said she was chosen by the stars themselves. She moved with calm power, and the crowd bowed deeply as she passed. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. Don't mess up, he told himself. Just stand still and don't draw attention. But fate had other plans. The Empress's eyes swept over the crowd. To Ethan's horror, they stopped on him. She raised one delicate hand, beckoning him forward. The crowd murmured in surprise. Ethan's knees felt weak. Why me? He didn't know, but refusing would be a grave insult, so he forced his legs to move. He walked toward her, every step heavier than the last. When he finally stood before her, he bowed clumsily. He opened his mouth to speak, but his throat was dry. He needed to show respect. Maybe use one of the polite gestures he had studied. His mind raced, trying to remember the exact one for greetings. Was it hand over heart? Or two hands pressed together? Panicked, Ethan raised one hand, bent slightly on one knee, and spread his fingers in what he thought was a harmless Earth-style gesture of greeting, something like offering peace. The hall went completely silent. Aliens gasped. Some dropped their cups. A few even whispered in alarm. Ethan froze, unsure of what he had done. His stomach dropped. What did I just do? The Empress looked at him with wide eyes. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, to Ethan's shock, she smiled. Her voice carried through the hall, soft yet commanding. You honor me, she said. Before all gathered, you have offered me the sacred bond gesture. Few would be so bold. Few are still so pure of heart. And I accept, Ethan blinked. Sacred bond gesture, accept? He had no idea what she meant. But before he could ask, the Empress stepped forward. She extended her own hand, mirroring his motion. When their palms nearly touched, the crowd erupted in cheers, songs, and cries of shock. Long live the bond, someone shouted. The Empress has chosen a consort, cried another. A human proposed? Gasped a third. Ethan's face turned pale. His ears rang. His knees almost gave out. Proposed? Did they just say? Proposed? Yes, that was exactly what happened. His little nervous gesture, something he thought was polite, was in fact the sacred marriage proposal sign of the Zalari, and the Empress had accepted. In front of the entire galaxy, guards in shimmering armor stepped forward. They bowed to Ethan, treating him suddenly not as a guest but as someone of great importance. A golden cloak was draped around his shoulders. He tried to protest, but his voice cracked. Wait, I think there's been... Silence, barked a noble with jeweled horns. The Empress has accepted. There is no higher word. The Empress looked into Ethan's eyes. There was no anger, no suspicion, only calm certainty. Do not tremble, human. You have taken a step few would dare. You are bold. You are mine. The words sent a chill down Ethan's spine. He hadn't meant any of this. He wanted to shout that it was all a mistake. But the weight of the stairs around him froze his tongue. Thousands of aliens, powerful rulers, and soldiers were watching. If he rejected her now, would it be seen as an insult? Would it spark a war? Earth was not ready for that. Humanity was barely learning the rules of this galaxy. The ceremony continued. Music filled the hall. Alien scribes recorded the event on crystal tablets. Symbols of union glowed above their heads. Ethan stood stiffly beside the Empress, trying not to faint. His mind was a storm of panic. What do I do? How do I get out of this? But through the noise and chaos he noticed something strange. The Empress was still looking at him. Not with mockery, not with coldness, but with curiosity, as if she saw something in him that no one else did. When the ceremony ended, Ethan was escorted by guards into a grand chamber inside the palace. The Empress walked beside him, tall and radiant. Once the doors closed, silence returned. Only then did Ethan finally speak. "Your Majesty, Empress, I think there's been a mistake," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to, propose. On my world, that gesture doesn't mean—" "Well, it doesn't mean anything like that." The Empress tilted her head. "Mistake?" she repeated softly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps the stars guided your hand." "No, I really—" Ethan started, but then stopped. The way she looked at him made it hard to argue. There was no anger in her gaze, only quiet strength. I'm just a junior diplomat. I wasn't supposed to be noticed. I definitely wasn't supposed to get married." Lysera's lips curved in a faint smile. "Yet here you are, chosen before all. Do you think me displeased?" Ethan swallowed hard. I don't know." The Empress stepped closer, her presence overwhelming yet strangely gentle. "Then you will learn," she said. "For now, rest. Tomorrow you will be presented not as guest, but as consort of the Empress." Ethan sank into a chair as she left the room, his head spinning. The galaxy had just seen him propose to an alien Empress. Worse, the galaxy had just seen her accept, and he had no idea how to fix it. The next morning, the palace was alive with movement. Alien attendants glided through the halls carrying trays of glowing foods, scrolls of shimmering data, and ceremonial gifts. Ethan walked behind a pair of golden-armored guards, trying not to trip over his own feet. Every step reminded him that he was no longer just a visitor. He was now officially the consort of Empress Lysera. Ethan's mind raced as they approached the Empress's private chamber. "I didn't ask for this. I'm just a human. The galaxy isn't ready for me. How do I survive this without offending her or causing war?" He tried to prepare himself for a stern lecture, a quick dismissal, or at least some guidance. But what he found was unexpected. The chamber was enormous. Tall windows stretched to the ceiling, showing the city of the Zilari capital with spires and bridges that glowed in shades of blue and silver. Lysera sat on a floating throne, her eyes following Ethan as he entered. She wore a flowing robe that shimmered like starlight, and her posture was calm but commanding. "Sit, human," she said, her voice smooth, like wind through crystal. "Do not stand like a servant. You are my consort now, and we speak as equals." Ethan froze. "Equals?" He bowed quickly, then straightened. I appreciate your words, Your Majesty, but I need to be honest. I never intended. What happened yesterday? It was a mistake." The Empress leaned forward slightly, resting her chin on her hand. "Yes, I'm aware of your mistake. But in our culture, courage and honesty are rare. You have shown both, whether intentionally or not. That is more than most who come before me." Ethan blinked. Courage? Honestly, I was just trying to not embarrass myself." Lysera's eyes twinkled, almost like a star laughing. "Perhaps that is courage in disguise. You acted without fear before 1,000 witnesses, and your heart was open. That is why I accepted." Ethan swallowed. Accepted? He wanted to argue, to explain Earth customs, to beg for a way out, but the Empress's calm certainty made him pause. He realized that trying to explain would only make things worse. The galaxy was watching. His words might insult her. Instead, he nodded quietly. "I understand, Your Majesty. I will do my best to respect your culture and your people." "That is wise," she said. "Humans are young in the galaxy, yet I see potential in you. Perhaps the stars guided this meeting for more than chance. Perhaps the universe intends for our worlds to be connected." Ethan felt a chill. Connected? Me? He was still just a junior diplomat, not a hero, not a ruler. The idea that the galaxy might rely on him seemed impossible. A soft chime echoed through the room, and a servant appeared, bowing low. "Your Majesty, the Council awaits your judgment on the matter of human integration." Lysera waved a hand. "Tell them to wait. This human is new. He will need guidance before he faces the court." Ethan's heart pounded. Court? Council? Integration? He had expected meals, greetings, and polite discussions, not political debates that could decide the future of empires. The Empress stood gracefully. "Come, walk with me. I will show you the palace and explain your place." Ethan followed, trying not to trip over his own legs. As they walked through long corridors filled with art, alien flora, and floating holograms, Lysera spoke. "In the Zilari Empire, A consort is more than a companion. They are a symbol of unity. Your presence shows the galaxy that I can see beyond species, that I value qualities like courage, honesty, and ingenuity above all. The next morning, Ethan awoke to the soft hum of the palace. Sunlight filtered through the crystalline windows, casting rainbow patterns across the floor. Today was different. Today, he would meet the Council of the Zalari Empire, a group of nobles, generals, and advisors who decided the fate of worlds. And now, by accident or design, he was part of it. He dressed carefully, trying to look composed, though his hands trembled. A pair of palace attendants silently guided him to a grand chamber. The hall was massive, circular, with floating platforms and glowing symbols etched into the walls. At its center sat the council, each member radiating authority. Some had multiple eyes, some wings, and some scales that shimmered like metal. At the far end, Empress Lysera sat on her elevated throne, calm and commanding as always. She gestured to Ethan. "Come forward, human. Today you join our discussion, not as an outsider but as my consort." Ethan swallowed hard and stepped forward. The noble's eyes swept over him, some curious, some skeptical, and a few openly hostile. He felt like a tiny speck in a galaxy-sized storm. One of the counselors, a tall, armored Zalari with glowing horns, leaned forward. "Empress," he said, voice sharp, "this human has barely learned our customs. How can he offer wisdom or guidance?" Surely this union was a mistake. Ethan froze. Mistake? He wanted to flee, to hide, but Lysera's gaze met his. She gave a subtle nod. "Stand tall. Speak with truth." Taking a deep breath, Ethan spoke, his voice surprisingly steady. "I may not know your customs perfectly. I may not understand your traditions, but I am human, and humans, we solve problems. We think differently. Sometimes we see solutions others overlook." A murmur ran through the council. Some scoffed, others leaned forward, intrigued. The armored counselor's horns twitched in irritation. Bold words for a human. But words are easy. Actions matter, Ethan nodded. You are right. Words mean nothing without action. I am willing to learn and to help where I can, but I ask only that you judge me by my choices, not by my species. Lysera's eyes softened slightly. Well said, Ethan. Let us see if the galaxy is ready for human ingenuity. The council turned their attention to pressing matters, border disputes, trade conflicts, and rising tensions with rival empires. Ethan listened carefully, taking notes and asking questions when he understood enough to contribute. At first, his attempts were simple. He suggested more efficient supply routes for distant colonies and ways to prevent miscommunication between fleets. Nothing groundbreaking, but the council seemed surprised that a human could think clearly in such complexity. By midday, Ethan began to notice a pattern. The Zalari were brilliant strategists, but they often adhered too strictly to tradition. Humans, he realized, could sometimes solve problems by bending rules, looking at things differently. He quietly began pointing out small inefficiencies and proposing alternate solutions. Some council members bristled, but a few, especially the younger nobles, leaned forward with interest. After the meeting, Lysera escorted him back to the private gardens of the palace. The gardens were vast, filled with alien flowers that glowed softly, and streams of liquid light that flowed like water but shimmered like crystal. She walked beside him silently, letting him absorb the beauty around him. You did well, she said finally. You did not just survive the council, you made them listen. That is rare, human, Ethan shook his head. I was just trying not to embarrass myself or you. I don't know if I did well. Some of them still look at me like I'm a child. Lysera laughed softly, a sound like wind chimes. A child can change the course of history if they have courage and wisdom. Do not underestimate yourself. Ethan smiled, though uneasily. The compliment felt strange. He was still an accidental consort, a human who had stumbled into the most powerful alien empire in the galaxy. And yet, for the first time, he felt a small spark of pride. Over the next few days, Ethan began learning the daily rhythms of palace life. He trained in etiquette, learned basic alien customs, and even practiced dining with multiple sets of utensils at once. He discovered that the Empress had a surprising sense of humor, often teasing him gently when he fumbled. One afternoon, while walking through a courtyard filled with floating lights, Lysera spoke again. Humans are unusual, she said. You are bold, unpredictable, and yet strangely honest. Most who come to my court are skilled in manipulation, deception, and flattery. You do not seem to know these things." Ethan laughed nervously. "I guess I'm not very good at politics yet. Or maybe ever. I just say what I think." Lysera's eyes softened. "And that is why I find you intriguing. Many try to impress me with grandeur. You impress me by being yourself. That is rare." Ethan felt heat rise to his cheeks. He tried to hide it, but she noticed. "Do not worry, human. You may be awkward, but that awkwardness may be your greatest strength." As days turned into a week, Ethan faced his first real test. A group of nobles, unhappy with the idea of a human consort, attempted to undermine him. They presented a series of political maneuvers designed to trap him in an impossible choice. Ethan, unfamiliar with the traditions, almost faltered. But he remembered what Lysera said: "Judge by choices, not fear." Using logic, honesty, and the little knowledge he had of the Zalari ways, Ethan carefully navigated the trap. By the end, the nobles were forced to admit he had acted correctly. Some scowled, others whispered with grudging respect. Ethan realized something important. He could survive this world if he stayed true to himself. Late that night, he found himself alone in the palace gardens, thinking about the week. His accidental proposal had turned his life upside down, but for the first time he felt a sense of purpose. He was not just a human visitor. He was someone who could make a difference. Someone who could show the galaxy that humanity was clever, brave, and worth noticing. Lysera appeared silently, as always, her presence calm and reassuring. She stood beside him and looked at the glowing streams of light. "You have done well, Ethan. Not for yourself, but for me, for the Empire, and for your people. That is rare courage." Ethan glanced at her. "I'm still scared. I don't know if I'm ready for this responsibility. I'm just a human." "I'm not like you," Lysera smiled softly. "Courage is not measured by size, strength, or experience. It is measured by the willingness to act despite fear. You have that, human. Do not underestimate it." For the first time, Ethan felt a strange warmth. He realized that Lysera was not just an alien ruler. She was someone who could understand him, who could see potential where others saw mistakes. He began to feel respect, and maybe something more. As they walked back to the palace, Ethan caught himself glancing at her. She was powerful, wise, and graceful, yet she treated him with a kindness and trust that he had never expected from anyone in the galaxy. And in that moment he understood that this accidental proposal was no longer just a mistake. It was the beginning of something extraordinary. The council, the nobles, the spies, and the political rivals, all of them would test him. But with Lysera by his side, Ethan felt that maybe, just maybe, humanity could hold its own among the stars, and perhaps he could even earn the Empress's trust, not just as her consort, but as her partner. The galaxy watched unknowingly, as a human began to take his first real steps into power, diplomacy, and unexpected heroism. And though Ethan did not yet know it, the bond between him and the Empress was slowly growing stronger, a bond that could change not only their lives but the fate of entire worlds. The morning sun rose over the Zalari capital, casting silver light across the spires and bridges that glimmered like crystals. For most, it was a day of calm beauty, but in the palace, tension crackled like static electricity. Word had come from the outer systems. A hostile alien coalition, long considered a distant threat, was moving closer. Their fleets were vast, their intentions unknown. Ethan awoke to the sound of hurried footsteps outside his chamber. Guards in golden armor rushed past, their voices low but urgent. He dressed quickly, his mind racing. This isn't just politics anymore. This is real danger. Lysera met him in the grand hallway, her robes flowing like liquid silver. Her calm presence contrasted sharply with the anxiety swirling around the palace. "Ethan," she said, her voice firm, "today the Empire faces a trial. This is not a game. The coalition believes the Zalari are weak, because I have a human at my side. They are mistaken." Ethan swallowed. They think I'm a weakness?" Lysera's eyes softened. "Perhaps, but we will show them differently, and you will be part of that. Do not shrink from your place." For the first time, Ethan felt the full weight of responsibility. He had been an accidental consort, an outsider who stumbled into power. Now the fate of millions rested on his actions. "I can't fail, not now. Not ever." The council convened immediately. Generals, nobles, and advisors filled the massive chamber. Holographic displays showed the approaching enemy fleets, ships shaped like jagged stars, engines glowing red, weapons bristling along their hulls. The enemy was large, powerful, and fast. One general, a Zalari with bronze scales and eyes like molten gold, spoke first. "Empress, their forces are overwhelming. We can fight, but many systems will fall. We must consider retreat." Lysera's gaze swept across the room. "Retreat is weakness. Humanity may be new to the stars, but they understand something our enemies often forget: adaptability." Her eyes turned to Ethan. "You will speak." Ethan stepped forward. The night was quiet in the Zalari capital, but the air was thick with tension. The hostile alien coalition had not forgotten their defeat. Their fleet, though scattered, had returned with reinforcements, larger and more organized than before. This time they aimed not to test the Empire but to crush it. Ethan awoke to the ringing alarms of the palace. Red lights flashed across the walls. The distant hum of engines and energy weapons could be felt even inside the palace walls. Guards rushed past, shouting commands in the alien tongue, their claws and armored hands moving with precision. Lysera met him at the command chamber, her expression calm but fierce. "Ethan," she said, "today the Empire faces its greatest test. The enemy is stronger than before. We must act decisively. Your insights will guide us." Ethan's heart pounded. This was no longer about diplomacy or court politics. This was a battle for survival. I can't fail. I can't let them destroy everything she has built, or put her in danger. The command chamber was massive, filled with holographic displays of the approaching fleet. Zalari generals, armored and glowing with energy, shouted orders. Amid the chaos, Ethan took his place beside Lysera, monitoring signals and relaying critical information. "Your Majesty," Ethan said, pointing at a cluster of enemy ships moving toward the supply lines. "If they destroy those stations, the Empire's fleets will be cut off. We need to intercept them before they reach the outer defenses." The general frowned. "That sector is too far." "We cannot move fast enough," Ethan thought quickly. "We don't need to move the main fleet. Send small, fast units with diversion drones. The enemy will focus on them and think the main fleet is elsewhere. We can trap them." Lysera nodded. "Do it. Trust the human's judgment." The orders were carried out immediately. Ethan's plan worked better than anyone expected. The enemy ships, confused and distracted, fell into traps set by the Zalari forces. Small strike teams darted in and out, damaging enemy engines, while decoy ships created false targets. Despite the initial success, a massive enemy ship broke through the defenses, heading straight for the palace. Alarm bells rang louder, shaking the chamber. Ethan's stomach dropped. "If that ship reaches the palace—" "Your Majesty, I can intercept it," he said without thinking. "I know the best path through the asteroid field nearby. I can use it to block their weapons and guide our strike." Lysera's eyes widened slightly, but she did not hesitate. "Then go. Show them the courage humans are known for." Ethan climbed aboard a small command ship with a team of elite pilots. As they approached the asteroid field, he took the controls personally. Every nerve in his body screamed danger, but he focused. Using techniques he had learned from old human simulations and instinct, he maneuvered the ship between massive asteroids, using them as shields against the enemy's energy weapons. The battle was intense. Enemy fire struck nearby, shaking the ship. Sparks flew and alarms blared, but Ethan remained calm, guiding his team with clear instructions. "Move left now. Fire at the engine cluster. Don't let them escape." Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The enemy ship faltered under the precise attacks, finally exploding in a brilliant flash of light. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The palace and the outer fleets were safe. Back at the command chamber, Lysera's gaze met his. Her eyes shone with pride and relief. "You have done more than anyone expected," she said softly. "You have proven your worth not as a human, not as a consort, but as a true protector of the Empire." Ethan slumped in his seat, exhausted. "As I was just trying not to fail." Lysera smiled faintly. "Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite it. Today you showed more courage than many who have lived 100 lifetimes." The council gathered later to discuss the outcome of the battle. Generals and nobles who had once doubted Ethan now bowed and offered words of respect. His unconventional thinking, human daring, and quick decisions had saved countless lives and turned what could have been a disaster into a decisive victory. One elder noble approached him, a stern expression on her face. "Human, you surprised us all. You were reckless, yes, but your actions saved the Empire. Perhaps we underestimated your species." Ethan nodded, still trying to catch his breath. I only did what I thought was right. That's all anyone can do. Lysera stepped beside him, her presence reassuring. And that is why I chose you. Not because it was expected, not because it was safe, but because you had the courage to act when it mattered most. That evening, the palace held a ceremony to honor the heroes of the battle. Ethan stood beside Lysera as the council and the people offered bows, songs, and words of praise. He felt a mix of pride, disbelief, and exhaustion. He had entered the palace as an accidental consort, clumsy and unsure. Now he was a hero in the eyes of the Empire. As the crowd dispersed, Lysera led him to a quiet garden. The air was fragrant with alien flowers, and the streams of glowing water reflected the night sky. You faced your first real trial, she said, her voice soft, and you succeeded. Do you understand now why I accepted your mistake? Ethan shook his head slowly. I think so. You didn't accept me because of the gesture. You accepted me because I tried. I acted when it mattered, even though I was scared. Lysera nodded. Exactly. Courage, honesty, and action, those are what matter. That is why the galaxy will notice humanity. And that is why you will always have my trust. Ethan felt warmth spread through him. He had started this journey feeling small, unprepared, and accidental. Now he realized that he had a place in this vast galaxy, not because of mistakes, but because of his choices, his actions, and the trust the Empress had placed in him. As they walked back to the palace, he glanced at Lysera. She was powerful, wise, and graceful, yet she treated him with respect and trust. He realized that their bond had grown beyond an accidental proposal. It had become something real, something strong. For the first time, Ethan felt a quiet confidence. He had faced fire, danger, and doubt and survived. The galaxy had watched as a human once thought weak had risen to meet its challenges, and though the future remained uncertain, he knew one thing. Humanity had a place among the stars, and he would be ready for whatever came next. The night was calm now, but Ethan knew the Empire would face more challenges. Yet with Lysera by his side, he felt prepared to face them all. The accidental proposal had led to trials, battles, and danger. But it had also revealed the strength of courage, the value of human ingenuity, and the beginnings of a bond that could change the fate of worlds. Ethan looked up at the stars. The same stars he had once thought so distant and unreachable. Now they seemed closer, as if the galaxy itself was watching, waiting, and ready for the next chapter. And in that moment, he realized, he was no longer just a human lost in the stars. He was someone who could make a difference. Someone who could stand beside an Empress and face the galaxy. Someone who could turn an accident into legend. The morning after the battle was quiet, almost peaceful. The twin suns rose slowly over the Zalari capital, reflecting off the spires like molten silver. For the first time in weeks, the palace seemed calm. Yet beneath the calm, plans were being made. The galaxy had seen the courage of a human and the wisdom of the Empress. Now it was time to solidify what had been achieved. Ethan woke early, his mind still buzzing from the previous day's events. He had survived court politics, navigated alien traditions, and even helped defend an entire empire. But today he knew would be different. Today he would face the council and the people, not as an accidental consort, but as someone who had proven his worth. Lysera met him in the palace gardens, where glowing streams and alien flowers shimmered under the morning light. She looked calm, regal, and proud. Ethan, she said, today is about more than celebration. It is about establishing trust and unity. The Empire must see you not as an outsider, but as a symbol of strength and cooperation. Ethan nodded, swallowing his nervousness. I understand, Your Majesty. I will do my best. Lysera placed a hand on his shoulder, gentle but firm. You have already done more than anyone expected. Today you show them that humanity is capable of more than they imagine. The council convened in the grand hall once again. This time the atmosphere was different. Nobles and generals who had doubted Ethan now regarded him with curiosity and cautious respect. The elder noble who had once sneered at him nodded slightly, a rare gesture of approval. Lysera rose, her voice carrying across the chamber. The Empire has faced danger and survived, thanks in part to the ingenuity and courage of a human. This is not a novelty. This is proof that our worlds can work together. She gestured to Ethan. Speak. Ethan stepped forward, heart pounding but steady. He looked around at the assembly of Zalari leaders. I am not a warrior, nor am I a ruler. I am a human. I make mistakes, I get scared, and I do not always know what to do. But I have learned one thing. Courage, honesty, and action matter more than any title or rank. If we work together, we can face anything because we are not bound by fear. A murmur of approval spread through the hall. Some Zalari whispered, others nodded, and a few even smiled. Ethan felt a wave of confidence. For the first time, he realized that the accident of his proposal had become a bridge between worlds. One general, once skeptical, stood tall. Human, your ideas, your actions saved countless lives. The Emtronger because of you.